Welcome back to Good Enough Channel, and this is Shirley. Today I'm going to be talking about something that many of you are experiencing. I was a homeschool mom. Some of my kids did distance learning, but now so many of you are doing distance learning. And I think the biggest difference is, for me, it was for a choice. I chose to do this. For so many of you now, with the pandemic, that choice is being taken away from you, and you are at home with your kids. And it was really brought home to me. I belong to the Spark community, which is a wonderful, supportive community, and I urge you to just Google Spark people, and it's a wonderful community. One of the Sparkers there was blogging about how difficult it is to be with the kids all the time, and I thought perhaps it would help a little bit if I shared just a few of the stories from when I was homeschooling my kids. And I'm not going to be talking about high school, because I think that high school kids are capable of distance learning on their own, but it's the elementary kids. They need a little bit more of mom's attention at times, but they certainly don't need you to be hovering as much as you would think. Of course, the big thing is whether or not your child can read. If your child cannot read, then they're going to have a lot more of your attention. But then their school shouldn't take that much time. When I was homeschooling the little ones, it was a full morning, but it wasn't much more, and a lot of it was things that they would do themselves, coloring and puzzles and this sort of thing. I think also one of the most important things to remember, if you have a young child in elementary school, is that their brains are still developing, and that all children develop at a different rate. I'm going to share a story of my middle son, and I have his permission to do so. And that is, when I homeschooled, I chose a very good curriculum, a Becca curriculum, and they begin reading in K4. So 4-year-olds are supposed to start reading, and then by the end of the year they have several little books, and then in kindergarten they have, I think, about 75 little tiny books that they read. So I went through this with my middle son. I went through all the phonetic lessons up till when he was supposed to read, and he didn't read. So I phoned the school that provides the curriculum, and I explained that my son wasn't reading. And they said, well, is he good at math? And I said, he's fantastic at math. His brother is 2 years older than him, and he can do all of his brother's math problems. So this kid's obviously very, very bright. And they reassured me and told me, everybody develops at a different speed, and boys often have the math part of their brains develop before their language parts, and that's okay. And so I felt very reassured. And they gave me new lesson plans every day. And every day I would phone in, and they would give me a different lesson plan so he didn't get bored, and the work was new, and we just kept going along. And about, maybe a month or 6 weeks later, he woke up one morning and he could read. He read like crazy. He was the fastest reader, and he still is. His brother was so much slower at reading. Now, the older brother had greater retention, but the younger, my middle son, he could look things up faster. So honestly, they wound up being very different, but having equal skills. And so it was important, I think, for me at that time to realize that your child doesn't have to develop all at once, and that's okay. And maybe that will help some of you who are seeing your child maybe, excelling at one aspect of the curriculum and struggling a little at the other. If they're young, give them time. It's okay. Another thing that I wanted to discuss was the activity level, because I found it again. My middle son, he was an active little guy, happy, active, energetic, biggest smile, but he couldn't sit still at a desk. And I phoned the school, and they said he is a normal, active little boy, and not all of them are meant to sit at a desk at such a young age. And they said, you said he was good at math, and that was true. He was excellent at math. And at that point, we were doing addition and subtraction drill cards. And they said, well, nobody says you have to do math sitting at your desk. Have him stand up, and when he gets the answer, he can hop on his foot and hop from one foot to another. And so we would do that, and it burned a lot of energy, and he got so good at math. I mean, he always was good, but this really, really helped. And so, that's another thing. Not all young children are meant to sit for long periods at a time. So if they need a break, figure out a way to give them a break. Figure out a way to get them to move. I guess when my father went to school, they had to walk a long way. I had to walk a long way. So by the time I got to school, I was pretty tired. Now that doesn't happen when you homeschool. We're blessed. We have a backyard, so we could always let them run around out there for a while. And we also, their dad, when they were very small, built a tricycle track, because we live in Canada. There's a lot of snow, and it's not always practical to send them out for a 5-minute break, but they could ride their bikes around. And so life goes on, and I think part of the problem might be you're suddenly faced with educating your child, but this is also a time when you have to realize you have the curriculum in front of you, and your child doesn't have someone sitting beside him when he or she is in school. You have to somehow get a cup of tea or coffee, take a breather, and just think about what kind of a student you want your child to be. For me, there was no question. I always wanted them to be independent learners. I wanted them to enjoy learning so that they would continue to learn their entire lives. I wanted them to be avid readers. I had certain books I wanted to pass on to them. So just take a moment and think, what kind of a learner do I want my child to be? Maybe part of the thing is to let them do their distance learning on their own, and when they do have a question, they can either ask their teacher, which is by far the best, because they're going to go back to school and see that teacher, or they can ask you a very specific question, and that is different than just always sitting and worrying. And I think one other point I want to talk about is not knowing everything. I think it's hard for parents, because we want our children to excel. It's hard for us to realize that it's okay for them to get a wrong answer. It's okay for them to not be perfect. If they're not getting a concept, then clearly you need to go over that concept again. But they don't have to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. Again, the name of the channel is Good Enough. I'm not saying your child shouldn't excel, but if they already knew the material in that grade, they wouldn't be in that grade. They'd be in a different grade. And so I think you have to allow them a learning curve. You can't do anything perfectly the first time. And often it's the insights you gain from looking over their mistakes that will help you teach them to the greatest efficiency, so that you can really understand what they get and what they don't get, and you can help them to grow from that point. And I think it's so important to let your child fail sometimes, and just, I mean, you don't keep them there, obviously. You go over the material. And again, this is when you want to know what kind of a learner your child is. Do they learn visually? Do they learn from hearing it? Are they an audio learner? Or there's all different ways and styles that children learn. Sometimes they have to figure it out on their own, and that will come, especially if they're young. It will come, and you don't need to worry about every little thing. You do need to worry about the big picture, and it's important to keep a handle on it day to day, but let them grow, let them develop, let them get the wrong answer sometimes. And if they don't get a concept, you're going to figure that out pretty quickly, and you can explain the concept a different way. Explaining a educational concept to a child the same way over and over when they don't get it is really not helpful in the long run. You're going to have to let the teacher explain it different ways, or you will have to explain it different ways. The big thing, I guess, is take a moment and don't stress. If you're involved in distance learning, not by choice, but because your school is closed, you can relax. You know your child will be going back to school. And take the time now that you have it to enjoy your child a little bit. The onus is not on you. The onus is not on you at all. Your child will do the work. He or she will do the material, and they will learn. And you can develop a much, much closer relationship with them through this trying and difficult time. So I guess that's about, well, all I need to say for now. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe. Bye from Good Enough.